So we have a Sanda coach here. He is a champion and a coach who's coached champions. If you want to know more about his qualifications, I put it at the end, but I want to get to the meat of the video. So he is explaining different uses of Xingyi and Tai Chi techniques. So let's look at what he has to say.
中国武术的抖摞手在格斗中运用比较广泛，很多门派的练法也不一。在咱们中国武术中，太极拳的佝偻手的运用，怎样手神的佝偻手，佝偻还有又佝偻还能击打，在格斗中对对方出拳打我的时候呢，不动，不动，不动，不动砰，你方方能够，你看怎样实行的佝偻，你看防守随劲儿，砰，防守随劲儿，砰，你看防守随劲儿，砰砰砰砰砰砰。
There's a common drill that many people who start kickboxing or Muay Thai learn, parry, like that. So when I think of this move, I think about that, right? You parry the punch. Basically, one person throws a punch, the punch comes to you. Just learn to slap it out of the way like that. So this is a common type of kickboxing Muay Thai drill. What I don't like about this, and I don't know if he's just doing this for emphasis or this is what he's teaching about the implementation. You move your hands too much, you open up your face, right? He's going quite big in his movements. We all know what a feint is, right? You know, a feint. What does that do? That literally, all it does is get your hands to react a little. Your hands react a little, it opens up your face to get hit. I'm thinking from that angle, I don't know if doing movements that big is the right thing to do. But the debate is not whether these types of parries work, because in any combat sports, you learn how to parry. A lot of students who begin at kickboxing, one of the first things to teach them is don't go out, don't react like this. People who go from TCMA to maybe modern martial arts or MMA, whatever you call it, they have to get out that reflex of wanting to block and stuff like that. It's interesting to see how students are practicing. They're going pretty fast, but they're also pulling their punches. And I saw one time when he wanted to hit with more power, he hit the shoulder instead of hitting the face. So I thought that was really cool. These are kind of interesting ways to think about how do you practice safely, but not sacrifice certain things like speed. Practice pulling your punches all the time, then maybe in a fight or in some kind of sports, you have to almost like readapt. Think about ways to train so you still remember in a confrontation or in the ring or cage, whatever, you're punching really hard. How do you train your mind to get out of the sparring mentality?
所谓倒年猴，就是到了追猴的意思。中国武术它不像我们太极拳很简单，太极拳叫你看向前，叫楼梯扭步，楼梯扭步，向后是倒年猴，你看倒年猴。 这倒年猴是怎么用？两个运动员在赛场上格斗中，不论是拳击是散打，经常发生顶撞。顶撞的时候，谁也不好用拳，每个人都不好发挥拳。他打我的时候，我没有上，我在固定定步姿势跟他进攻，很不容易运营，很不容易把自己防守反击动作用好了。我还得要上回来，撤回来以后。
So this seems like a retreating movement. Just moving forwards or just moving backwards is probably not the best thing to do. All about angling off angles, right? Moving to the side, moving 45 degrees, etc. And on top of that, if you're getting pressured, sometimes you can post, right? You can post. You put it out of frame. The tool set that this could really help with, let's say you're tired or you're getting dazed a little from getting hit. Sometimes you forget to angle, right? You forget to do some of that stuff that you kind of develop because the more you get hit, the more tired you are, the more sort of the advanced stuff just falls by the wayside. This is kind of a good little emergency or last resort type of move where it's like you're stuck going backwards. Okay, what do you do?
太极大师杨露禅在苏王府当保镖的时候啊。 王府里头有个统兵员，那是现在的说，是啥黑猩猩，黑猩猩跑了以后，一个大猩猩，很多武士去抓这个猩猩，谁抓不着猩猩？这猩猩非常厉害，打跟人打谁打不了。这猩猩追杨露禅，杨露禅一去一打一抓猩猩，猩猩一扑杨露禅，杨露禅这一哨，砰的一下， 把新给打倒了，既有撤又有进攻，顾名思义，倒脸猴。太极拳的倒脸猴是这么出来的。
So I am going to call complete bull on this story. Here's why. If you know about what's called the ape index is how much your arms are long from one middle finger to the other compared to your height. The reason it's called an ape index is because apes, monkeys, etc., simians, I think that's what the branch it's called, they all have longer arms than us humans. Assuming it's a gorilla, okay, the gorilla's probably your height, but it's got way longer reach than you. Are you really going to be using that Tai Chi move and actually be able to connect with him? On top of that, think about this. Qin Dynasty China. People were not very tall in general back then, but in China, the average person was probably a height of, let's say, Dominic Cruz or a Demetrius Johnson or something. And there's a reason I mentioned these fighters. You can be small and still be able to fight. So being small does not mean you can't fight. But if there's a gorilla that might be taller than you and have maybe like 6-inch reach on you, I don't think you're going to be backing up doing that Tai Chi move on the gorilla. So I really don't believe this story. This goes into kind of a general discussion about embellished stories, tall tales, and it's not just traditional martial arts. We all hear embellished stories about Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris, etc. I just think let the action speak for itself. Don't try to tell tall tales because it just gets a lot of people's BS meters kind of going.
但是在散打格斗中，怎样把单人倒脸猴从做出来？都在格斗中，我跟他打，我俩打他，原地不动打，摸，我在原地不动这么打，他打在我身上的时候，你看，我这时候我没有防守怎么办？你看，我又得撤，还要打，你看，痛，你看，痛，把他从他这个位置引到我这个位置，我从第一位置引到第二位置。我在第二位置击打他，痛。
I think this segment is really awesome because he's teaching it almost like if you were a counter striker. A counter puncher or a counter striker can really use this move because he's explaining, okay, you force him to overextend, you force him to come to your territory, and that's how you get him. I don't know if he explains it to his students like that, like this is for counter strikers, but that's how I see it. If you're a counter striker, this move could really work.
既有防守又有进攻，既有防守又有进攻，既有防守又有进攻。往后，你往前拖，往后拖。
I think it was really interesting to try to see the student implement it. The way he was using it, he was using a different Tai Chi move, so not the reversing monkey, but he was moving forward and hitting, and he had to tell the student, no, move backwards. In Tai Chi, there is a move where you move forward with that move, so the student seems to be able to use that. So this goes back to a discussion, too. I think many schools, many martial arts need to let the art fit the student, right? You can't let the student fit the art. Everyone moves differently. Everyone fights differently. Everyone thinks differently. So let the student take the art and make it his or her own. What works and what is effective for him or herself.
两个在顶撞之间这打人家，经常是这种效果，省级比赛赛场上的这种动作应用率基本达到40%。在两个人打到到一块以后，砰，这种动作占40%的拳法。为什么说这占40%啊？就是拳法运用的不精。不准，所以说要想做好这个技术，身体不能跟他发生顶撞，一定要稍侧着打上，砰！你看，当对方撞的时候，你看撞，砰！你看，砰！马龙哈特勒使这个使的比较好，使什么？对外说砰，人家推着对方上，砰！
So as I'm watching this, I noticed something. The student's wearing boxing gloves, and our coach is wearing kind of MMA gloves. So that goes back to the old discussion. Can trapping and a lot of these things be used with boxing gloves? Parrying versus this. You have a much easier time parrying a punch. You have your fingers, right? It's harder. I mean, you have more. That's why a lot of times boxing, kickboxing, instead of parrying, you know what you do? This is a pillow right here. They just hit it. You just absorb it, you see? Instead of trying to parry it or whatever, just absorb it. Or, you catch it or whatever. If you have fingers available, of course it's better to do that. I've seen trapping done with gloves, but it's a little harder, right? You got more maneuverability this way. You also have the retractable thumb and all that. It's funny that to illustrate all this, the coach had to kind of not wear boxing gloves. So now imagine if the coach is wearing those MMA gloves and his students are wearing MMA gloves. Would that make a lot of these trapping, parrying things harder? If the students weren't wearing these big gloves that you could grab or slap away, suddenly it's a smaller target to either parry or trap or whatever. In an MMA match or in a real life confrontation, how much of the trapping, the parrying, and stuff like that can you use? I don't know the answer. I'm posing this to you guys. As promised, I translated the coach's qualifications. He narrated his qualifications himself, so maybe there's some embellishing, but I'm sure he's qualified.
1996年11月，张云祥在河北省第1届拳王争霸赛中获得拳王的照片。获得拳王后，张云祥与恩师任忠信的合影照。这是80年代张云祥在拳击比赛中获胜的照片。1996年，张云祥在河北省比赛中获全体团体总分第1的领奖照。丰南体育馆的拳击健儿们在省比赛中获得比赛的合影照。这是1996年张云祥带丰南队在邯郸参加全省青少年拳击比赛，获金牌4枚、银牌3枚、铜牌4枚的成绩。其徒郑恩明在中华武林沧州类中获得类主荣誉。其徒王卫刚在中华武林沧州类中获得类主荣誉。其徒张冲在河北省拳击比赛中获得金牌，并入选河北省专业拳击队，获国家1级运动员荣誉。这是80年代本教练张云祥的拳击比赛摄影。其徒高先冠强获得冠军时的照片。其女张芳2004年获中华武林沧州类类主的照片。这是张云祥教练的长子张建波在2007年获全国空手道比赛75公斤冠军的照片。这是张建波在2009年再度获全国比赛冠军的照片。后张建波入选国家空手道队，任国家队队长。这是2006年45岁的张云祥与欧美选手、空手道黑带选手进行切磋比赛的合影。2010年，张云祥和美籍拳手杜伊库鹏进行切磋，并以中国武术给外籍选手上了一堂中国武术的教程课。
Alright guys, this is Fight Commentary Breakdowns. If you like this type of video, spread it all over, share it in Kung Fu forums, share it in Muay Thai forums too if you want. Just share it with people, man. The more support I get, the better. I also have a Patreon page if you guys want to pledge on Patreon. I'm also going to introduce channel memberships soon. So just more ways to support this channel so I can continue making stuff like this, because sometimes you take a risk and it doesn't pay off and it messes up your channel for a little bit. Thank you so much.